You start to record.
I'm leaving this in. I don't give a shit. At least
That's
in the
Mr.
video.
Gill.
At least the video version.
That's Mr. Gill, created by my friend Anthony, who wrote the book, co-wrote with Scott, the book for Beetlejuice the musical.
Nice.
That was a character he used to do in our show based on a gym teacher, I think, at his school.
Cool.
That's why I was making fun of a gym teacher at Riverside High School in the 80s or early 90s of Durham, North Carolina. Okay. I'm Mr. Gill. Come on, start the damn big stuff.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About the Big Stuff. I am the lead big stuff, Michael Cole.
And I am the bigger in some ways, but not in others way, Matthew Cravat host person.
You're taller, but I am taller. I'm girthier.
Depends what you want to reach. We reach people and touch people in a different way, but that's okay.
Yeah. So, just side tangent before we get into the main.
Yeah, how can we tangent when we haven't started yet?
That's the whole point of the podcast. Is just
we don't even have a topic and we're tangenting.
Yeah. See, I knew that I should just start with the regular stuff, but I don't want to, feeling wise. So, yeah. So Logan knows a lot of the words for penis. And he's really big into
but he doesn't know all the Yiddish words.
Yeah, he doesn't know cock or anything, but he knows dick and stuff. But he's really into D's nuts and all these like silly jokes, and I don't give a shit about it as long as he doesn't say it outside the house, which he does not. So I said to Sarah one day, I was like, "Oh, I should tell him about chodes," and she was like, "I don't think you should tell him that," and she like basically forbid me from telling him about it. Which when Sarah forbids me from doing something is very rare. And she was like, and then we were having this argument, and she's like, I was like, I really want to tell him. It would be so funny to watch him laugh when I describe it. And she's like, but it's sexual. Like, it's not just like, like saying like a dick or a penis is not necessarily sexual. It's just a sex organ, but he doesn't know that. He just knows it as the thing that pees. And so you can't tell him about a chode. I'm like, why is a chode inherently sexual? And she goes, we wouldn't find it amusing if it wasn't inherently sexual. I'm like, he will find it amusing, and he will not know anything about the sex part of it. I promise you. I was like, all you have to do is say, like, it is wider than it is long. Like, and that's all, that's what it is. And he will lose his fucking mind. And she was like, no, absolutely don't. So, in case you're one of our listeners who doesn't know that I am, that I have the ability to stop, I did stop, and we did not tell Logan what a chode is. So, that would...
So I used to perform comedy with this guy named Chode. No, I didn't. I did not. I'm joking. But almost. I had a buddy who, in his name was Richard. So he came up with the nickname Churd for himself, like as in Richard instead of Richard. And he loved it. And he had like fans of our comedy show that we used to jokingly call the Churd Reich because they loved him so much.
Oh my God.
And then this was years ago, like in the 90s, when internet was not as powerful, so you couldn't find things out so quickly. So his was using the name for a couple of years before he found online that a churd is a term used for a...
Oh.
And he's like, that's what I've been calling myself. That's why I introduced myself. So he no longer he stopped using that stage name. So teach Logan about churds.
One of my great pleasures in my life, because I'm such a filthy, disgusting human being, is when someone teaches me a new thing. And like, I'm not into racial slurs, but if I learn a new one and I'm like, I've never heard this one before, I'm just like, I find it interesting. Same thing with like these Urban Dictionary terms. I'm like, oh, interesting. Something I didn't know already. So thank you for telling me about churds. And hopefully we can never talk about them again.
Yeah, don't kink shame me.
I guess it's not that bad if it's pegging you. So
yeah, just listen, like it's firm enough.
Yeah. All right.
You don't want to have churd after Indian food because you're just making a mess at that point.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but I think churd's getting cut out of the podcast.
Oh no, poor churd.
It's so fucking gross. There's a part of me that wants to leave it in because of my reaction, but I do not want anything being like, I do not want. Maybe I'll just
I don't
leave
want to be
this.
known as the Churd podcast. I gotta text Churd after this.
I'm gonna have to be like, Sarah, here's what happened, and then she'll be like, did you laugh? She'll be like, how
I'm
hard
gonna
were
have
you
to cut it
laughing?
out because Matthew was funny.
Yeah. So, anyways, so
So
anyways,
what are we talking about
we
today,
can
Churd boy?
we can get Churd shirts as part of our merch. It'll be our Churd merch. I'm just it's so fucking gross.
The Churd Reich, let me tell you.
Well, we're definitely not doing that. All right.
I had to give him like special dispensation. It's okay to have the Churd Reich.
Okay.
Like the director of your comedy troupe is Jewish, you're allowed to have an anti-Semitic sounding fan group.
Yeah, and hey, here's the thing: if the Third Reich was using Churds,
Who cares? Instead of guns, they just hit Churds. Who cares?
maybe the war would have ended quicker.
Not so scary. Not so scary with a bunch of Churds in your hand.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, that was a natural. So anyway, by the way, I pointed. Okay. So anyway, I pointed out to my coworkers the other day that because a lot of them have listened, but they don't listen that like regularly. And I said something about whenever we're coming out of something that I'm absolutely going to cut, it's so anyway. And they were like, you do say that a lot, even in real life. They're like, when you want to change the subject, you're like, so anyway.
Mentally, I am cutting whatever you just said. Just know that's what it means.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last 30 seconds.
This is either going to be our best or worst episode based on.
And now pronounce you man and wife. So anyway. Who the hell is she?
Yeah. Oh, if I didn't know who the hell she was, it was just because I had so much tears in my eyes from how beautiful she looked.
So anyway.
So anyway. You don't get to have it. That's our word. I don't remember the topic. No, I do remember the topic. Basically, it's cognitive dissonance, but on a more specific level. Well, maybe it's not cognitive dissonance.
No, not technically, no.
Okay. So the topic
cognitive dissonance is when your brain interprets being told you're wrong as pain, so you can't accept the new data because your body's reacting as if it's in pain. So
gotcha.
So you can't process the data that's being given to you.
Okay.
That's technically.
So tonight's topic that I want to talk about is when we have a feeling that conflicts with our intellect. And the example, Matt Dillahunty used to talked about it, at least in one of the videos that I've seen from him.
Matt.
If you don't know who Matt Dillahunty is, he's an atheist speaker. I would not necessarily recommend him if you are not an atheist, because you may find him to be obnoxious. But he's important. I like to think.
He and I had a delightful evening together a couple of years ago.
Did you?
Tequila together, had some great conversations. Yeah,
I'd love to meet him.
He's charming in public. He's in person. He's charming.
I'd love to meet him, and I think that he serves a real purpose. I don't mean that as a knock on him. I just think
he does for those who don't know him, he does a debate show, call-in debate show. So if you want to call in and convince him that your view on God is right, he will viciously rip you apart. Actually, he starts friendly. It's only when people annoy him, which happens pretty easily, that he gets.
And I've seen some really great ones where people are not trying to trick him and not trying to get loopholes in, and
actually responding to what he says instead of saying the same thing over and over.
And they have a great conversation, and that's nice. Yeah. But my point being, I think that the atheist movement, as is everything else, needs to be a spectrum. And he's a little more harsh on that spectrum than I personally want to be. But I think there's a reason for him to be there. And just as much as we need to have friendly atheists, and we need to have everything in between.
Friendly, scathing, we got everything.
Yeah, it's not my fault they were using the correct
both
words.
Of them too.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I've been wanting to go to one of the when they talk about the conventions. I'm like, I want to go to the convention. The only way I can see Sarah letting me spend that kind of money or vacation time is if our podcast gets big enough that we have to go for the podcast. But or
maybe
if
I'll
it's
go to
local, if it's
maybe
local.
I'll go to one time and say, hey, come with me, and then it'll be like, well, split a room so it's not so expensive to go.
Yeah,
Maybe that'll be
I
good.
really genuinely want to go. I want to I just want to kind of see what the vibe is like, But um, so yeah, so the idea, so Matt Dillahunty told this story about because he was raised some specific type of religious Christian religious, and that was pretty strict in a I would say like a social conservatism kind of way. And he was talking about how for a long time he even after he came out of Christianity, he still saw like if he saw gay people kiss, he his inner his inner voice would cringe, or he'd just kind of wince and cringe. He was uncomfortable with it, and he intellectually knew that like there was nothing wrong with it, and he would force himself to like not behave that way, but he still had that. And I think that if you're raised with certain things, you still get that in a lot of situations where you're like, I have no problem with this on an intellectual level, but my immediate reaction is ooh or ooh. So this is why we're doing visual. But my point that, and so he then said that eventually he went to a friend's wedding, a gay friend's wedding, saw the two men kiss, and it had been so long, and he realized that he didn't have that reaction anymore. And I think it's an interesting idea that we can be so ingrained in something, and it's not always so black and white as like clearly there's nothing wrong with homosexuality, but like if you're taught that, then you have this
People
reaction.
get it with racism things. Like
Yeah.
if you're
Well,
surrounded by racism, then you can easily first thought, there's a violent crime. I'll bet a black guy did it, and then that's stupid. That's not necessarily likely. But why
yeah.
did that thought come in my head? Oh, because it's how I was raised to think for 40 years.
Yeah.
I had to not believe that first voice.
Yeah. I will say I have a lot of them in me that are, I don't know that they're based on not black men. Um
I'm
uh
just saying,
I have a
you do
lot of
you, or be done by
these
whoever you want to be done by.
I have a lot of these like reaction or emotional reactions.
First response, first reaction. Yep.
Yeah, I have a lot of those where I do it where I have that bad response. Now, most of it is not in any particular way that is offensive against a group. It's because I'm a weirdo, so it's my own little thing. So like if you tell me I'm trying if you tell me like your son's name is Bryson, it doesn't matter if that kid is 6 days old or 100 years old. My immediate thought is date rapist. Um,
Why? Just because he's Mormon?
is that a
I
Mormon
don't know.
name?
That's my thought. You said Bryson, like sounds like a Mormon name.
I think like that kid's
No
gonna have.
offense to my Salt Lake City brethren, I love you guys. But you got some names.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those names where you like, and there's a lot of those where I'm like frat bro, like it, and that's well, yeah, and that's I don't think that about Matthews. I always think Matthews are typically nice, and then I realize that I know
I was a
you.
frat bro.
So yeah, well, I as a non-frat bro have a
Because we would not say frat, but we would say fraternity brother.
because you
Like you
wouldn't
wouldn't
call
call
me.
sorority a sore. You wouldn't call your country a cunt. You don't call your fraternity a frat.
I don't know about that last one. Um, Depends on the day of the week.
For the presidential situation.
Yeah. But so I'm very guilty of it. I will say the one thing that I think I do that is probably problematic, or I consider problematic, that is I am still there's still some inherent misogyny in me where if I hear a woman uh say something dirty or like very vulgar, my immediate reaction is yeah, no. My reaction is to think it's funny, but like I in a different way than I would if a guy said it. Like if a guy said it, like I get it. I get that people hate Amy Schumer and hate.
I was gonna
Uh,
say Sarah Silverman and Lisa Lampanelli and Amy
yeah, I
Schumer.
get that people like really hate it, and that,
Brilliant.
and I think a lot of times when they hate it, it's also a problem. But for me, I don't. I can't think of a guy that I want to hear talk. Like, oh, I was going down on this girl and blah blah blah. Whereas if a woman says it, you're gonna be like, oh, did he have stinky balls? Like, what's going on here? Like,
Okay, that
there's
you definitely are different than people. I give you that. I
yeah,
think because Andrew Dice Clay's opening line of "The Dice Man Cometh," his breakthrough hit was, "So I got my tongue up this chick's ass." Like that was his opening line of the
yeah,
concert.
yeah,
But you know how boring it can be when you're online in the bank, and she's looking at me like, "Do I know you?" So
yeah,
I had that whole routine memorized. That came out on like New Year's Eve, and my then girlfriend, now wife, soon to be ex-wife when she hears this. No, um, we watched it at midnight and we laughed so damn hard we couldn't breathe. It's all politically incorrect now and all terrible, I'm sure, but at that time in college we were dying to the
yeah.
point where we stayed up because they were replaying it at 3 a.m. and we wanted to see it again. And so we stayed up all night and watched it. And the next day we went to Pizza Hut for lunch, and the old people, and I say old, they're probably my age now, at the next table asked to be moved to another table because we were doing the jokes back and forth to each other, and it was so filthy.
I
I married her because she was filthy. Damn you.
good. Me too. I mean that.
You married my wife. God damn you.
Yeah, yeah, I did.
So I've never told anyone this before, ever, in any circumstance. But yeah, my reaction that I have sometimes that's inappropriate is if like my kids when they would get hurt, my first thing was who did what? What did you do wrong? Why did you get hurt?
Yeah.
That's my first instinct before I even soothe their pain, and I had to quickly shut that down and be
Hmm.
dad and take care of the pain. But in the back of my head, I'm like, what did they do wrong? Why did they, meaning one person, do this wrong? Could be either my son or daughter. That's why I'm saying they.
Yeah.
I
I
never told anyone that before, unless you listen to our other podcast episode where I said it.
yeah.
I don't know what order these
20
are coming
minutes
out in.
ago.
I don't know what order these come out in. So who
Like
knows? Maybe I never told anyone before.
as of right now, they're coming out in the order that we're recording them. Because
Oh,
nothing's
just like when you're on hold.
nothing's time sensitive. Um, like if we did, sometimes we do a subject where I think like we need to release this, this week, but nothing that we have. We had this is our third episode in the can right now. Um,
Those of you watching in video know we're not in the can. We are in like just rooms.
yeah,
He just wants
it's
people
a
to think we're in the can.
it's a
Get a better
technical
echo.
term. Yeah. Um,
Technical term when movies were reel to reel and the film actually went in a can to
yeah.
protect it.
Yep. Um,
What's a movie? Oh, a direct to video.
who's on the side quests now, huh?
But I'm not complaining about it. I'm not looking for blame. Look at you laying blame.
You just like straightened it out like I was supposed to, like Digital Summit's supposed to mean something to me.
No, it's not. I'm just straightening it out.
Yeah.
Free T-shirt when I went to the Digital Summit. The swag company, and they were giving, and it's really smooth. It's really nice. I took like 5.
Yeah. Oh, so here's another example. It's not exactly the same thing as that we're talking about, but it did make me think that it kind of falls into this category. So
And
I
we touch.
sometimes when we touch, no, well, the average person probably on, if they're thinking about it, people that don't like them, they don't like, right? Fair statement.
My mother says that often.
Like if you don't like
If they
me,
don't like me, I hate them.
yeah. I don't really have this problem in general. Uh, if one of two things, I think I said this a couple weeks ago. If you find me funny, if you don't find me funny, that's a problem. Off the podcast. If you think I'm not funny on the podcast, I get it. Because anyway,
So anyway,
but if you don't find me funny in person, then I'm probably not going to like you that much. The other thing that drives me crazy is if someone doesn't like me for, like, I can 100% understand why some people don't like me, and then I can, if you have a good reason, I get it. If you have a bad reason, I don't like you. But I think the average person is like, no, you don't like me, so I don't like you. And for me, there are certain people who don't like me that I respect the honesty about it. So I'll give you the
and I
example of,
respect that you respect me for that.
yeah, yeah. And my dad respects that you don't like you don't like him. Oh no, he doesn't like you. Sorry.
I like your dad, despite the fact he doesn't like me. It makes me think he has better character and is a good judge of character.
Yeah. No. So I may have told this on the podcast. I told the story recently, but I can't remember if it was on the podcast or not. I don't think it was. So when I was 21ish, a friend of mine from high school got a job with me at Home Depot, and one of the girls that I had worked with her before he did, and we were working together, and he started dating her, and so I was already kind of friends with her, but then she became part of my like friend group from high school for a little bit while they were dating, and one of his other best friends, and I do not like each other, and so I went over one day and to hang out at his house, and his girlfriend was there and he was there, and I get there and his girlfriend is like, Mike, she was here and I did not like her, and I was like, why didn't you like her? What, and she goes, well, she said some pretty shitty things about you, and I did not think they were true. And I was like, honestly, like, I was like,
Probably.
she has some pretty good reason to dislike me. And she's like, what? And she couldn't understand that. I'm like, look, she's a shitty person, so I don't like her either, but she doesn't like me for a good reason. And she was like, what's the good reason? And I was like, well, okay, so I'm going to explain this, and I'm 90% sure she's never going to listen to this. So,
Like everybody else.
no, like this is more, I'm closer to 100%. So this woman is, and I, this is gonna sound shitty. I'm gonna sound like a shitty person for a minute, and then I'm gonna sound slightly less shitty, and then I think it'll rest. I don't think I'll ever get good in this situation. But when we were in high school, this girl was real fugly, like just not a good looking woman, and that's not a problem for me. I have no problem with somebody who's ugly, but I would say that like, and the comparison I used to make is kind of problematic now because of trans people, but like I would say, like, if you just put a wig on me, I would be a prettier woman than her. And so like I don't mean that in a transphobic way, but at the time,
Just
like,
in a drag way.
yeah, yeah. So, but she genuinely she was like an ugly woman, and no problem with that. But there was another girl we went to school with who was also not very attractive, but was much nicer, and they did not like each other. And one day, this girl said to the other girl, the nice ugly girl, I don't even want to say ugly, I don't even remember if she was that ugly, but she was nice. And so she said to her, you're the ugliest fucking person I've ever seen in my life. They were in the middle of this fight in study hall, and I, being a smartass, was just like, oh, do you not own a mirror?
I knew instantly that's the line. I mean, that is the
Yeah,
appropriate response line.
yeah. And to me, it was, I'm defending this person who is basically minding their own fucking business. But I also understand that that's a real low blow. There are times where I've been defensive, whether it's self-defensive or defensive of another person, and I've crossed a line. And so that was probably one of them. And so when this girl that was dating my friend was like, she said some shit, I'm like, no, like, I genuinely think that was a fucked up thing to say. Was it deserved?
I mean,
Maybe.
being hit with the weapon that you were using, you can't blame. You can't get too upset. You used that weapon.
Yeah, but so that's what I kind of think that this concept of I think that I think that like Sarah and Logan and you all have very little reason to dislike me. But I think there's people who do have a reason to dislike me, and a lot of times we as people don't balance
See what
that
Logan's
well.
therapist says about that in 10 years.
Well, that's true. Yeah, the baseball thing is probably not going to help things.
And the chode.
My dad was a bad coach. He didn't learn about the chode or the churd. He's not going to learn about the churd. No one's going to learn about the churd. Nobody needs to hear about the churd. I might leave all the churd in except for the explanation as to what it is.
Go look it up yourself.
Yeah.
Find out why
it's so fucking
my
gross.
friend stopped being called churd.
Anyway, but the point that I was getting to was I think that we want to think of people like I am a good person to you. Cutting the jokes aside, that's a fair statement, right? But I was a shitty person to her, and so have to recognize I try to recognize that with other people. Like there are people that I don't like, and I think that that's a thing that I personally don't suffer from, is the like the like you have to be on my side, you're either with me or against me kind of
Yeah.
mentality.
And we have a friend who's having a party this weekend. Yeah, this weekend because Memorial Day weekend. They're having a party, Christmas party. It's
Yeah.
Christmas in July, in May. Um,
By the time this episode comes out, it'll be
yeah,
closer to July.
it will have passed. The party will have passed by then. But it's good friends. We love their house. We love going to their house. We love partying with them. And they sent an Evite out, and we looked at the Evite, and we saw another couple who's going to the party. Who replied yes, and Madhavi's like, "We're not going to the party if they're there."
Yeah.
But our way of expressing that to our friends who are the host is, "Oh man, we're so upset we're not going to make it this weekend to the party. We've got a conflict,
Yeah.
but we need to have you guys over for dinner soon." It wasn't, "Oh, because you invited these people, we're
Yeah.
not coming. You should be not friends with them because we're not friends with them."
Yeah, exactly.
It was purely, "We can't make it." And the thing is, like, that's why we checked the Evite. If they had replied negative, they can't make it, we would have been like, "Cool, we're going to the party." But no,
Yeah.
but the hosts don't need to know that it's us or them. That's not a position they need to be in to make a decision.
Right. Right. And yes, I agree, and I think that's the best way of handling it. I do get why people. I get to some extent why people aren't able to do that. It's just been that particular thing has never been a problem for me. But obviously, like I do have my like visceral reactions that I don't like about things, um, all the fucking time, and then I have to tell myself, no, why the fuck do you think that? But unfortunately, in most cases, my stuff is, well, unfortunately and fortunately, most of my stuff is like weird, frivolous, nobody else thinks that kind of shit. Like not like, oh, women are bad drivers. Oh, why did you think that? Like I don't have those thoughts at all.
Yeah, that's the problem being raised by progressive hippies. I don't have a lot of the things that my generation is supposed to have had because my parents were in that regard,
Yeah.
ahead of the generation.
Yeah. But I mean, I wasn't raised by hippies. I was raised by, I love you, mom and dad, but I was raised by somewhat judgmental people. They were not that bad about it's real funny. Obviously my parents know I'm liberal and stuff, but like my dad, they went to go see Lewis Black last week, and my dad was like, he was really liberal. I'm like, I'm really liberal. Like arguably I'm more
He went to
liberal than Lewis
UNC,
Black.
of course.
Oh, I
Yeah,
did.
I mean, yeah, he went to Carolina, like most Jews. He, but it's like I didn't have to grow out of it, like you, like grow out of it. But I didn't have to change as I got older. I didn't have to give up um,
Yeah.
previously what I would consider now bad positions because I was raised with the good positions. You know,
Yeah.
again, and especially for the generation, like right now, like interracial relationships, like nothing now, right? Nobody bats an eye. But when I was a kid, it was a bigger deal. It wasn't. But in like my house when I was in college, my mom was trying to fix me up with a Jamaican coworker of hers
Yeah.
because she thought, "Oh, she's gorgeous. You guys would look great together." And so
Yeah.
it's like that's like not a typical experience for the mid '80s to have your mother generation saying
True.
you should date
So
interracially.
weirdly, I would say when I said my parents are judgmental, a lot of it is similar to my judgment about like it's weirdly arbitrary and not based on social norms. Like, my dad specifically was a bit of a realist. So like at one point, my sister, I don't remember if she was dating a black guy or she had a crush on a black guy, but she like kind of was like, "Would you care?" Like she kind of like floated the idea, and my dad was like, "Look, I have no problem with whoever you date as long as they're nice to you. But that being said, there are people who do have a problem, and like it can make certain things more complicated, and you need to like be aware of that. Like and one of my friends, Brian, who was on the podcast before you joined, he told me one time because he's a black man and his uh, at the time wife was is a white woman. He told me that they were thinking about moving, and they literally went and took a trip and walked around the mall to see what kind of looks they were going to get
Mm.
together. And so like it is a thing you have to consider, or you have to like
Just be
you have to
aware
be
of
able to
it.
figure out how to adjust for, essentially.
Right. It's like checking your
And
mirrors.
yeah,
You need to just know what the environment. You need to be woke. You need to know what
yeah,
the environment around you is.
yeah,
Doesn't mean you have to do something different in your life, but
right,
you need to be aware.
right. And so my dad was very much like that, but I remember him saying, being like, no, it's not a big deal. I also remember being 17 or 16 or 17 and saying to my mom something along the lines of like, if I were gay, I don't think that grandpa or dad, I don't know if grandpa or dad would still like love me, because that, you know, we had all the,
And she
because
said, "Oh, Mike, they don't love you now."
no, she said that she didn't think it would be a problem for either of them. And like my mom's a narc, like a super narc. She told my dad, and my dad came in like that night and was like, hey, what's going on? And I was like, nothing. I just was curious. And he's like, I do not care. He goes, he basically said like the standards that I want you to behave with, are the same, whether it's a guy or a girl. Like, I don't care. And so like, I didn't get he didn't have, he really is very rarely expressed any blatant or homophobia. I think that there might be some subtle, he's a 65-year-old or 64-year-old man raised in America. Like there's a little bit of it that's ingrained in a subconscious way sometimes. Uh, but like I never got that kind of, for me, it was more of like the kid's name's Bryson. What's he, a date rapist? Like that is what I would hear from, not that voice is a terrible impression of my father,
I
but
know. As much as he hates me, that's not his voice.
so my point being with I think that it's just interesting that like, and I don't think people do the hard work a lot with that, with saying like, if something makes me feel a certain way. And it's funny because a lot of times it is the facts over feelings people that are like, ew, I don't want to see gay people kiss, like it makes my penis hard, or it makes my stomach hurt, or whatever.
Or both.
Yeah. So I personally like have to, like, whenever I have those reactions, and I do have them in these weird fucking ways, I have to be like, why did you think that? Like, but again, it's usually about
Yeah.
Bryson's being
Yeah.
date
I
rapists.
wonder if there's a ideological parallel of what type of people fight to overcome those things in themselves. To say, I intellectually think this emotional response is wrong, so I want to get rid of it in my,
Yeah,
and like I could say like Dillahunty after 20 years or 30 years realized, oh, I did get rid of it. Like you
yeah,
just realized it's gone. When have people do that versus if there's an ideological connection to wanting to
yeah,
do that versus wanting to say, well, I feel it, so it must be right,
yeah,
and defending it instead of like saying because I feel it, it must be a true thing.
yeah. So I want to tell another story about a guy. This is related.
No,
It's not a tangent. It's a story that's related to the subject. Don't judge me. Um, don't have that visceral reaction.
you're judging my reaction as if that's what I was. I was reacting like, oh goody, it's story time. I can't wait. I wish I had a blankie. That was my reaction. You misread it because you made assumptions of what you would have been doing in the situation if there were a story. You were incorrect in your assumption. My assumption was just goody, goody, goody. Mike is such a wonderful storyteller, whether it's through video or through the spoken word. I look forward to this story. I am excited about this story. There was no judgment other than a positive judgment, anticipating joy.
So I like that we just got CK light there. Uh, no, so
Complete with the malaprop. It's
yeah.
the CK trademark.
So when I was a kid, I'd have been 13 or 14 when this happened. Um, we had a neighbor whose um, father wanted to come stay. Her parents wanted to come stay with her for Christmas, but her father was very allergic to their dog and couldn't really be in their house. And so he stayed in our house. My parents just like let him stay because we were, two houses over, and it was a small street, and so it wasn't a big deal. And we ended up, for Christmas, we ended up having like a neighborhood Christmas party anyway. So you get to, everybody was going to be together anyway, so it didn't matter. And I if I was to guess now, he's probably, if he's still alive, he's got to be early to mid 90s at least. Because I think he was older than my grandfather, and my grandfather's pushing 90. So he was from Louisiana, Louisiana or Mississippi. I think it was Louisiana, but it could have been Mississippi. Maybe it was Mississippi. And I remember, I don't think I was supposed to hear this, but one time I was, he's down talking to my parents probably after we were supposed to go to bed or whatever, and he said to my dad, you know, uh, growing up down south, I have some thoughts about people, and I don't, and I never really thought anything of it. I never examined it. He goes, I didn't want it for my daughter, so like his daughter was not at all racist, but he's like, I never like taught it to my daughter, and I was good about not training her to repeat that way of thinking, but I never really put any self-examination, these my words, not his, self-examination into it. He goes, and he goes, but tonight I spoke with your friend, and my dad had one of my dad's best friends at the time, who was one of our neighbors, was a black man. And he goes, I spoke to your friend, and we talked for quite a bit, and it was the first time I've ever spoken to a black man other than like at the grocery store, or like somebody who's helping me basically. And he goes, and if I had done it earlier, maybe I wouldn't be the way I am. And it like changed him. And I remember thinking like, oh, if you're going to be a racist, be that racist. Like the guy who like is, like has this shittiness in him. And I think that it really formed me in a lot of ways, because I think about that a lot, where I'm like, we're going
I
to,
should talk to a black man one day.
yeah, no. I talk to black people quite a bit. But I I have
There's no way for that to sound good.
yeah. But my point being, that I do think about it a lot, where it's like we there's this idea, and I hate the sin idea, but like the idea that nobody's perfect. Well, I don't want to accept I accept that we're not perfect. I don't accept that we have to just give up on that. Like we can strive to be, we should always be striving to
Perfect
be
is a
better.
destination.
Yeah. And like we should always be saying, yeah, nobody's perfect, but I could be better. And I get, and there's ways in which I'm not working to improve myself, because I'm comfortable or happy with them. But the idea of that people, and I genuinely don't understand that part of it, when people say like, obviously, you know, and I guess they don't believe that it's wrong. I guess the average racist or the average bigot doesn't think that their bigotry is wrong. They think it's right, and they think that they've found some way to justify. Maybe that's the problem here. But to me, it always seems like, yeah, no, I think dumb things like fairly often. I want to not think those dumb things as much as possible. Sometimes I will. Sometimes I'll, I will do something dumb. I'm usually pretty good about trying to correct it, apologize, doing whatever. I mean, again, not in bigoted
Yeah.
ways, but in like,
That's what my personal definition of being a skeptic is. I want to not be wrong, but I don't want to prove that I'm right. I want to find out that I'm wrong so I can stop being wrong, on any issue. Like I want to know
yeah,
if I'm right or wrong because I want to stop being wrong,
yeah,
not that I want to prove that I'm right if I am not
yeah.
right. Like I don't want to win an argument through being a better semantics and better arguing. I want an argument or a debate is to test my position to see if it's right or not.
That is one of the things I need to improve about myself.
Yeah.
I am so now that we have video, Sarah does this motion to like signify that, like, oh, Mike's looking it up. He's about to look it up, and she says that whenever one of her family says something, that she can see me go and like get ready to like try to prove them wrong. And I'm like, well, if someone says something wrong, don't they want to be corrected? And she's like, no, nobody wants to be fucking corrected.
I do. Correct me.
And my
So
coworkers, I'll laugh at about it too, because I'll pull it out. And one of my so we have a tally at work we have a whiteboard, and there's a tally, and it's anytime I'm convinced I'm right about something, and then I'm proven wrong, I get a tally mark. And today at lunch, one of my coworkers said, anytime he whips the phone out, if he's wrong, he gets a tally. Like that, if he whips the phone out, he's confident that he's going to win.
I'm ripped out because I'm like, oh, I don't know. God, that's
Yeah.
not what I thought it was, which is right.
Well, in a conversation,
Yeah.
when I whip it out, it's because I'm trying to prove
If
someone
it's
wrong.
in the moment. So a story popped in my head when you were talking about if I had had this conversation earlier, my life would have been different. Did I ever tell you the story about my friend from in college who told me I messed up his life at graduation?
Is this the one that was like, I never met a Jew before or
Oh,
something?
not that, yeah, not that they made, but he said he was from Smithfield, North Carolina, where the Klan is big, and he was expecting to go back and join the Klan like his daddy, his brothers, his uncles, and then he realized that I'm a Jew and I'm a good fucker, and that's not what he was told. And he said, but not just you. I got black friends here in college and Puerto Rican friends and whatever, and they're all good fuckers, and they're not supposed to be. So now I know the way I was raised was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
How do I go back home when I know all my family is just wrong, and there's no way I can convince them they're wrong?
Yeah.
And he ended up just staying in Raleigh instead of moving back.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's what we need but it's tough for me because it's tough for me to understand some of that and to understand the idea of like completely separating for example, if Logan decides that I'm wrong about something, which obviously I'm wrong about a bunch of shit, but I can't think of an example because I'm wrong about it. So, but if Logan goes, oh, my dad is such a piece of shit, thinking that all Brysons are date rapists, and like I would be like,
Not that they
I
all
wouldn't.
are, it's just a higher percentage of probability.
And he names his kid Bryson because he loves the name Bryson. I wouldn't be like, I would just be like, dude, I would be like, I want you to be a better person than me. Like, I want to be a better person than I am too, but
But I
I'm
will never
glad,
speak to your goddamn son.
I'm
That's
glad that you're
disgusting.
not repeating, like, cause this is a secondary thing that my dad had this conversation with me when I was around that same age, as that other story. My dad said, like, we should be, he goes, I got a better, I want to give you a better life than I had, a better childhood. I want to make you a better person than I am. And then I want you to make your kid a better person and have a better life and than I do. And that's how I've always felt. And so like if Logan, like if my dad, I think I said this a couple weeks ago, the fact that we don't spank, my dad doesn't take that as judgment. My dad takes that as good. You learned. Like, I'm sorry that I did it, but you learned.
You've arrived.
And
You've
if
arrived above me.
yeah, and if Logan raises his kid and doesn't teach him chode, I'll be like, good, you learned from me. That's the best example I could think of right now. But and so like so for me, and not that I would be in the Klan, and I feel like maybe being in the Klan and thinking that way aren't the same, are probably mutually exclusive to some extent. But the idea of like, how am I supposed to go home? It's like, well, your parents should want better for you. Like,
Yeah, but
and
they
if
don't
you,
think that's better.
yeah, I guess that's the case.
They
It's
would be
well,
like, we sent you to school and look, you got these stupid ideas. Like you came back brainwashed.
I think the Jews are good, and yeah,
Yeah.
go watch that Kanye fella and learn the truth.
No, Kanye reversed position because he saw Jonah Hill in a movie and thought he was really funny. So he realized Jews weren't that bad because Jonah Hill is funny.
Yeah, that's a
Good kidneys.
yeah. Can you imagine being Jonah Hill? Like, there's that you got to be like, what the fuck? What the
Why
fuck?
me? Why did it have to be me?
like while to some extent it's a little bit of bragging rights, and then on the other side it's like, oh, I do not want to be involved in this. Keep my name out of your fucking mouth. But
I think I'm Jonah Hill, man. Nazis watch me and they convert to Judaism.
at least black Nazis. But all right, I'm getting hungry and it is getting late, so I think that it might be time for us to call it. But I
It.
think it. But I think we actually did a good
We
job
explored
staying
the
on
topic a
topic.
bit. We jumped in and out of it.
Yeah, mostly in though compared to. I mean,
Mostly in it.
other than Churd, um, we're definitely. I'm gonna definitely delete out the definition of Churd and leave the
Was
rest of
that
the
in this
Churd
episode
ref.
or the last episode, the definition of turd?
I don't
I think you're
remember.
blending
I think it.
episodes now.
Yeah, I think it was this episode. I'm pretty
I
sure.
think I mentioned it in this episode, but I think it was a callback to the last episode. I don't
Maybe.
know now.
And you got
Can't.
anything other than Churd? Do you have anything that you want to promote? I'm not linking to
Um,
Churd. Urban Dictionary.
I have nothing. Nothing to promote today. Nothing. Nothing that I can think of.
I don't get the. I don't get what you're talking about.
Nothing. There's nothing. I have nothing. I've got nothing. Nothing. You want something? I don't have something. I have nothing. If I had something, I would tell you what the something is. But right now, I don't have anything, and that's nothing. We do 2 episodes of the same night. How many things can I have to plug? I plugged something like 45 minutes ago. I plugged. I'm fully plugged. I got nothing left to plug. I'm plugless.
Okay. All right. I have nothing to plug, but I will. Well, I'll plug this show's YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah,
Um,
plug us.
yeah. If you like this show, please, like I always say, give us a 5-star review. Give us a write something down for us. And hey, if you want to give us a bad review, that's fine. Just make it
A
interesting.
5-star bad review.
No. Give it. You can give us a no star and just give us a review, and it can be funny or just make it memorable at least if you're going to be not nice to us. You can do that on Instagram.
Tell us how you don't think that Mike is funny.
But
He loves people who don't think he's
you
funny.
feel that I'm funny. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. So anyway. No, to give us a good, give us a review if you want on Instagram, on iTunes or stop mouthing
Podcast
shit.
player
You're
of your
distracting the
choice.
shit out of me. At least the viewers are going to see it on the podcast. Listening of your device of your. God damn it! God damn it! I didn't fuck up the
Welcome
intro.
to the world's greatest podcast.
The world's best podcast.
I'm not getting sued.
Hey, he likes it when we plug it. So
We're
anyway,
going to plug.
check us out on YouTube. It's talking about the big stuff on YouTube. It's talking about the big stuff on Instagram, and just keep listening. Download, even if its subject sounds stupid, download it because we get
You don't have
credit
to
for the
listen.
download.
Play it in the background.
And if
Plug
you
the
subscribe,
YouTube. Just turn the YouTube on with the volume off while you're making breakfast. Just let it play.
I do because by the time that I've edited, I've listened to an episode at least 2 times. So when I every Friday morning, I put it on, I mute it, and I hop in the shower and I go do all my getting ready ritual while it plays silently, and then I'll if I'm trying to wake Sarah up, I'll just turn the volume up a little bit so she hears one of us
My
talking.
voice.
And maybe it'd be really
She
funny
likes to wake up to my voice.
the Friday that this comes out, if I happen to turn it up towards the end of the podcast and she's just hearing and then I turn it up when I'm getting out of the shower. So that'd be funny. But anyway.
She'll be sleeping, hearing us discuss churds, and they'll just get into her dreams.
Yeah.
Honey, I want to try something.
Okay, do your thing.
So whether it's a churd or a chode, enjoy the big stuff.
No. I don't want a churd or a chode big stuff. I want a genuine. You've got the world's biggest man behind you, the biggest music star,
the biggest
in Germany.
star celebrity. Hey, you know who that is? That's David Hasselhoff, and he enjoys the big stuff.
Yep. All right.